Moral support. We've known each other for a while. When she was getting ready to make this movie, she came to me and, asked, she wanted this thing to be as real as it could possibly be, and she wanted to know if she had the support of me in the UFC, and I said, we're 100% behind this movie, and whatever you need. So.
It's clear in watching the film that support was there. And Halle, to you, what was it about the sport of MMA that drew you to it and enough to go through with this labor of love that was making Bruised?
I have been a boxing fan my entire life. When I was a kid, I was a latchkey kid, and what I had in front of me was the television and boxing. And my dad left the family early, so my images of manhood and what it was to be a man were Muhammad Ali and Frazier and Hearns and Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard. Like, these were fantasies of what a father would be for me, right? And I fell in love with the sport, and it was my favorite pastime as a child. So around, 2013, I don't know if I have my facts right, but I remember seeing Ronda Rousey and Liz Carmucci. That was the first UFC fight.
Yep.
It was in California, the Honda Center. I remember that. And I was, from that moment on, loving boxing when I saw these women being treated as men would be treated within the sport. And it was a big, huge fight. It was publicized. It was UFC. And I fell in love in that moment. I fell in love with women MMA fighters in that moment.
And to that point, in the documentary, you speak so much about how this burning desire to tell the story of fighters, but in particular, female fighters. What is it about the women who participate in this sport that captivated your passion so much?
Well, they're just a different breed of woman, of human. And I realized through researching women in MMA that I too have been a fighter my entire life. And that's what I connected to. And had I gone a different path in life, I really believe I would have and could have been a fighter. I feel like there's something in me that understands it intrinsically, that loves it intrinsically. I know what it is to fight. I know the heart that it takes to be a fighter. And I felt like this was a story, like I started in the documentary. I had this burning desire to tell this story and highlight the women of the sport and to really have us understand what it is to be a woman and be a mother and have to fight and all the hats that we have to wear. It's a very different point of view as a female fighter versus a male fighter.
And Dana, to you, what does having such a blockbuster megastar like Halle Berry making a movie like this say to you about the state of the sport and just the way that it's being embraced in the greater community?
Yeah, and the fact that she saw that Carmouche Ronda Rousey fight and became a fan. And when she came and talked to me about the movie, and I'm sure you all know the movie was incredibly successful. It absolutely killed it. So to have a mainstream, talented, A-list actress like her in her directorial debut,
yes,
do a movie about the UFC, it's massive. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that me and the Fertitta brothers dreamed about 20-something years ago.
And when you watch the making of Bruised, you see a lot of familiar scenery, the Apex, of course, and the UFC Performance Institute. Why was it so important to you to support Halle in that way and give her access to the facilities and all of the help that you did provide?
Yeah, I mean, if the movie's going to be real, her and I became friends, and I told her I'd support her any way she needed it. And to really make a real movie, you got to dive into this world. And part of my problems with lots of fight movies out there are, I think because I'm so deep into it, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of you media, some of the stuff you see is just silly to you. Just silly and unwatchable as far as I'm concerned. And so I was willing to help her with whatever she needed to make it as real as possible.
And I remember that's one of the first things you said to me, Dana. You're like, just make this real. Those were your words. Don't make it silly. Don't do some things that don't always happen. Don't make it sensational. Make a real movie about the sport. And those words stuck in my head for 2.5, 3 years. And that's why I worked so hard to make it real and why I had to get Valentina. I had to have a real fighter and not a retired fighter. I needed a real fighter. So to have the reigning champion with your help, come and teach me to spar, to train, to keep me honest. Every shot, every move we did, I was checking in with her. Is this real? Is this how it would go? How did that feel for you? Like, she really kept that level of authenticity and realism intact the entire time. And that was really important to me.
And that's the truth. She couldn't have hooked up with anybody better than that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And Halle, to that end, I mean, I'm sure you anticipated that the training would be very difficult and grueling, but was there anything about the training that kind of took you by surprise?
All the broken bones, the dislocated fingers. I mean, I didn't show in the movie. I also broke 3 toes and dislocated my shoulder, besides the finger and the 2 broken ribs. I wasn't expecting all of that. I mean, I knew it was going to be hard and grueling, but, I'm not, a youngster. So, I expected things to happen, but I had no idea the level of injury that I would have to work my way through.
And putting the injuries aside, what were some of your, favorite moments in training and really diving into this character and into the community and the culture?
Well, one of my greatest moments was the day when I came here and Dana gave me sort of the tour of the facility, and I got to meet my homegirl, Jessica you saw, and we got to really just talk about what it was to be a fighter from her point of view, and all the other fighters that I got to meet that day. That was sort of the starting point for me. Working with Valentina, it was a dream come true to fight with a real champion. I mean, who gets to do that and learn from a champion? And I learned things that will stay with me forever. It bore my love of jiu-jitsu. I'm now working on my purple belt. I'm committed to the sport in that way. To be able to tell a story about a black woman and have it be a black woman in a community that I understood, that community that I presented in the film was very much the community that I grew up in. So it was real for me, those characters, that life was real for me. So to tell a story about a sport I love so much in a community that I know so deeply, and to be able to have it be true and authentic, but offer hope at the end of the day for my people, felt like something I had to do. It was something that I just couldn't shake.
You could see that in the making of the movie, absolutely. And to you, Dana, I know that you have a lot of respect and admiration, particularly for the female fighters on the roster, just how tough they are, how talented they are. And when you hear Halle describe the injuries that she sustained and how real the training was, what's your reaction to that? How deep she got into this character?
Yeah, I mean, we all know this is a rough sport. And, just the jiu-jitsu side, once you get to a certain age, jiu-jitsu's rough. I haven't messed with jiu-jitsu in like 12 years. But yeah, for her to get in there but you also know when you start doing jiu-jitsu, that's when you really fall in love with this sport and you really get into it. You meet the people. Just everything about this sport is incredible, and it grabs you and it pulls you in. If anything, look at what we've done in 20 years, how big this is and how many fans there are all over the world. When we started this thing, there was no... Australia is always my best example. You had Elvis Sinisic coming out of Australia. I think he's it. There was maybe like two other guys at the time, and now we have, guys in the top 15 and world champions from there. So that's how fast it's grown and how many people have fallen in love with it over the last 20 years. So yeah, but to answer your question, she's a badass. Yeah, she's a badass. She dove in head first. She did all the things you need to do to make a movie real.
Halle, it's clear that in the making of the movie, you and Valentina really struck up a true friendship. What was that entire journey like, and compared to the moment you met her to the end of the movie, building that friendship with Valentina?
Well, right away, when I asked her, right away, she said yes. I mean, I'm not quite sure why she did that, but she said yes right away. She was a real collaborator. She had taken some acting before. She had taken some directing classes before. So this world was not really new to her. It was something that she really wanted to do. She was very committed. She worked very hard, as we might imagine she would, but she worked very hard, not only in training me, but in also training herself. Like, I had to learn how to fight, and she had to learn how to movie fight, which is a very different thing. When you're from 4 years old, you've been taught to kick through and punch through someone, to now, have that veracity, but yet not kick through and not punch through and not hurt somebody was something that was really hard for her to sort of wrap her brain around being able to do, but that was necessary for the movie. So it was a friendship that, was built on working together, but we quickly became friends where we would be together outside of training and talk as women and really go deep. And we shared so many things that will bind us forever for life, that no one will ever know we talked about really, or that we shared, but will bind us forever.
Yeah. I love the part in the documentary where she's telling you, no, you need to rest. You have to take a day off, Halle.
Well, she didn't really understand the job of a director and the actor. There was no, off days for me. But yeah, she was always very concerned about me. And when I actually broke my ribs, when we were shooting, I said to her, she's the only person I said, Valentina, I think I broke something. She said, no, you didn't break nothing. I didn't hurt you. Like, she didn't want to believe that happened, and she was, that wasn't a good day for her to know that she would never want to do that to me.
Of course not. You hear a lot of fighters talk about how fighting is so much mental, and even the training is very much a mental exercise, a mental challenge. Did you find that to be true? I
did, and I think that mental toughness that I built up for 2.5 years of training is what got me through shooting this movie, because it was hard. What I didn't say in there was my challenge every day was we didn't have the money. The financier, I don't think, really had the money. So every week we had to find more money to keep going the next week. So every week I was told we might shut down, but yet I had to keep working at the same pace. I couldn't let the crew and Valentina and everyone who had shown up to work so hard. But deep down I knew any day, any moment, this whole thing could be shut down and this could all be for nothing. And my finance guy had to just keep finding money week after week after week to finish this. And so it was that mental toughness that I gained through 2.5 years of training that I really relied on to get through this production. Yeah, that's very true.
Now being through it and having been through the training and working on your purple belt, which is amazing to hear, how have you found that enhances, because we see you at fights all the time, how have you found that enhances your viewing experience, if you will, of the UFC?
Oh, because now I can watch a fight and I can actually, one of the fun things that I like to do is I like to watch a fight and call out what I'm seeing. And I love to do that with other people that know about the fight game, and we sort of spar and we see who can call out what's happening faster than each other. And so that's a fun element now. So I don't just watch a fight like I used to 3 years ago. I now watch it with so much knowledge about what's actually happening.
Now that you've gone through this entire journey, sort of giving birth to this movie, is that the process felt that way at times, I think. Will we see more MMA-related content coming from you in the future?
I hope so. I don't know what that would be. I don't know if I have another movie to make, another story to tell, but I certainly will forever be a champion of the sport, a champion of women, a champion of Dana. He is the truest, the bluest. He lived up to everything he said he would do. He supported me in every way I could possibly be supported. So I know that I feel like family in this sport, and I know I will love it forever and champion it and uplift it every chance I get, for sure.
Dana, are we going to see you cameo in a movie anytime soon?
Never, ever.
Never?
Ever.
Never?
Not my thing.
Why so definite, sir?
Ever.
What if we do Bruised 2?
If Halle asked you, I feel like you would say yes.
I love you, but no.
Just one last one before we open it up to the media here. This was quite the journey for you to get this movie to screen. And the training, all of it, the challenges that you had financially that you referenced. Now that you're done with it, are there things that you have taken from this journey that are going to be with you, even though it's done now, continue with you through life?
Oh, yeah. I mean, to accomplish this against the odds has imbued me with so much a sense of confidence and a sense of knowing that I can really do whatever I set my mind to, that no challenge is too great. And even if, it doesn't turn out exactly the way I wanted or I face failure, there's no such thing as failure. We just have to do what it is we're called to do. And I now know that I can do whatever I want to do and that I'll survive it. and not only will I survive, but I will thrive in that situation. And this whole experience has taught me that. And to be 55 years old, doing what I'm able to still do, has taught me that we can do whatever we set out to do. Our mind is very powerful.
Well, for what it's worth, I think in an alternate universe, you would have been a fantastic UFC fighter, and I wish I could have seen it. With that, I will open it up to questions from the media.
I got one right here, all the way in the back. Question for Halle. They showed you watching the actual fight, specifically when Pearl Gonzalez was fighting, and it seems like you were getting very emotional. Your eyes started to kind of well up. So what was going through your mind when you were watching these fights? I don't even think you had started shooting and you were still sitting cage side watching these fights.
Yeah, I was with Shannon. We were watching an Invicta fight, and what touched me about that, which touched me about all the women, is that Pearl was talking about why she fought. And she was fighting for her little niece. She was fighting to get out of her circumstance. And I desperately connected to what that feeling was. I remember being in Cleveland and wanting to get out of my circumstance. And so I understood what that was all about. And it touched me because the part you didn't see because we didn't film it, she brought her little niece up on stage and she was explaining to the audience, this is why I do what I do, because she wanted her little niece to have a better life. And that's what I love about women. When they get up and they talk about why they fight, it's usually something like that pulls on your heartstrings.
Outside of Valentina, it also showed you training with Clarissa Shields, Gabby Garcia, and these three women are some of the most accomplished in their respective disciplines. So outside of the bonds and the friendships you formed with them, what was it like physically training with both Clarissa and Gabby Garcia?
I mean, they're beasts, all of them. So, to train with Clarissa, to train with, the two-time Olympian champion and learn how to box and to train with Valentina, the world champion. I don't think it gets better than that. It was a challenge for me, because I had never really boxed. Was just learning jiu-jitsu when I did a movie called John Wick. That's when I sort of got introduced to jiu-jitsu and judo and taekwondo. So I was just a beginner. So to find myself training with champions was intimidating. Yes, but at the same time, they were very patient with me. They were loving, and they filled me with confidence. They made me believe that I could actually do this if I put in the time and put in the work.
Hi, Halle. So I'm just wondering what it was like to work with the fighters as actors and in the acting portions, because I know Val and Gabby, they were also acting in the film. They didn't just have the sort of combat roles. So I'm wondering if they had any acting coaching and what that was like.
I don't know if they did any coaching on their own, but what I can tell you is that they were very malleable. They were very open to me helping them. They were open to my direction. They were open to my ideas. And they both were very committed to creating memorable characters because neither one of them played who they really were. Valentina couldn't be a sweeter human being. And when she walks into the cage, she's nothing like this character. She's not full of all that vibrato. She's not cocky. She's just a serious fighter. And at the end of the day, when she wins her fight, she's twirling around in a circle. So this character was not Valentina at all, but what I loved about it was that she was willing to go far and create a character and be specific about this character. And when I said, I need you to dye your hair red, this is how I get into a character, this might help you, she was all for it. And she spent many, many hours talking with me about the character and trying to figure out how she could create, something different for her fans so that she wouldn't be Valentina, but that she would actually be someone else on film. So what I would say about both of them is that they were really committed. They were challenged by this, and they were very committed and open to any suggestion I ever had. They were very open to it.
I think we have time for just one more.
Oh, okay. Well, my last question is just, what was it like, or what was the biggest challenge of being both the lead actress and also being behind the camera? You're not able to watch yourself, like you said, during the fight scene, but the rest of the movie as well, you're not able to watch yourself. So what was the biggest challenge of, maintaining both of those roles?
That was the biggest challenge, and I doubt I will ever do this ever again. I think that was the hard part for me. And because I was a first-time director, many days I felt that my focus went to directing and not me as an actor, because I was so overwhelmed by all of my responsibilities, and I was training for a good part of the day, and then I had to face my director duties. So it made for very long days. It was frustrating at times because I didn't get to see playback all the time. I had to just trust that what I felt in the scene, if it felt right to me, I had to move on. You know, I didn't have money to sort of go back to the monitor, check it out, have an opinion about it. I had to go with my gut most of the time and realize, okay, I think that felt good. And I had a few people on set that I trusted, and I would say, how did that feel to you? Was everybody in the pocket? And if everybody seemed to say okay, we would move on. So I probably would never do this again. And I didn't set out to do this, mind you. I never set out to direct myself in this movie. It's just I couldn't find a director that, one, loved the sport as much as I love the sport and would be committed to doing the sport and the fighting justice, who also really understood the world that I wanted to create and give the characters the love and the time and the attention that they needed as well. So at the end of the day, I realized I'm the only one that loved all of the elements of this story in a way that someone needed to love it to be able to tell it. So I had to do it at the end of the day, but I certainly would never do it again. That's for sure.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, so much for coming out to support Behind Bruised. Most of all, Halle Berry, Dana White, of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Drive safely, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's really lovely to meet you. Nice to meet you, too.